All right, I'm Trever Busch, and this is Barkley Busch, and this is a special MLB segment of, MLB Toronto Blue Jays segment of Sports from the Stool. So I'm just going to ask Barkley a few questions about what he thinks about the team, where the team's going. We're both pretty big fans of the team, so I guess the Jays are obviously in a rebuilding stage this season, and despite some early success, a lot of people think they will still be kind of the doormat of the American League. What do you think this season has in store for the team?
Well, this season they are definitely in a rebuilding mode. In the American League East, unless you're up there with a big payroll, you're going to almost be looked at as a doormat. You've got teams like Tampa, Baltimore, Boston, and New York in that division. I would say Boston and New York are poised to contend. I really like Tampa actually as a contender in this season. I think they've got a lot of youth. They've got a lot of upside to their players, and I really like them actually not only for this season but for the long term. Baltimore and Toronto are kind of the teams that are looking like they're going to be working to work in some new younger players into their lineup. So I would expect to see the Blue Jays move on some players this season if they get a good offer for guys like maybe Lyle Overbay, Jason Fraser, Scott Downs, and any other players that are in the last year of their contract, as if they can get guys for like prospects for those guys that can help in the future. I expect to see some of those guys moved. As far as the doormat of the East, Baltimore hasn't really started out very well, but they've got a lot of young talent. They're rebuilding as well, and I would expect to see them up contending in a couple years. And but I think Toronto has more established players right now with Lind and Hill, a couple guys who had big years last year and are both very young. So I think Baltimore and Toronto will fight it out for the last spot in the East. But I think Toronto will surprise a few people with how they play this year.
All right. Well, the Jays had a really successful preseason record. Do you think this is an indication that there's a lot of depth in the team's farm system?
Toronto's farm system is absolutely improved over the last couple of years. You've got guys like Kyle Drabeck, Brett Wallace, and Travis d'Arnaud they brought in the Roy Halladay deal. Those are three top shelf prospects. They had a draft pick last year, first rounder that they signed, who's a pitcher who's supposed to be pretty good. His name is Chad Jenkins. They actually even signed a guy by the name of Adani Hechavarria, who's a Cuban shortstop who just got unblocked. He's a defector. He's only 21, and he's supposed to be the real deal. And so I like their move of signing him. They went out and outbid a bunch of teams to get him. And shortstop's a real place with a lack of depth in their organization. But as far as their farm system goes, they've got a lot of depth in pitching as well. They've got a lot of guys in AAA that a lot of teams would actually be very interested in acquiring, and as far as pitching, and so I think it definitely speaks to the improvement of the depth in their organization.
All right. Let's talk for a minute about the departure of J.P. Ricciardi and the ascension of Alex Anthopoulos. This is a guy who definitely has a different vision for the club. What are your thoughts on some of the moves that have been made so far, I guess?
I really like the direction that Alex Anthopoulos is taking this team. J.P. Ricciardi was more of a win now philosophy once he built his core. Anthopoulos, I guess, is in the process of building his core, but he's really looking to the future. Something Toronto has needed to do once they felt they had a contending team, they really didn't stock their farm system very well. And in a division where you're competing with the Yankees and Boston, that's how you can win. That's your competitive advantage if you choose to make it, is scouting and player development and keeping players coming through the farm system and outbidding those guys on where you can outbid them, which is draft picks and international free agents. So Alex Anthopoulos has actually taken the scouting back, taken a better scouting perspective on the team. He's brought in. Toronto actually has more scouts than anybody in the major leagues right now. He's realizing he's in a rebuilding process. He's looking for athletes. He's looking for young players, and I really like the direction he's going.
Okay. Well, let's get back to this season. What do you think about the surprising performance of Vernon Wells so far?
Well, Vernon Wells has been everybody's whipping boy for the last few years, but I think he's always had the talent. Obviously, they wouldn't have given him a contract like that if he didn't. And he's showing some of it now. Again, I think you can chalk up some of his bad years to maybe the first couple to, gee, I got a big contract, I don't have to perform anymore. And then maybe the last one to some injuries. I know he had some wrist injuries and stuff. And so to actually see him healthy and swinging it like he can is a really refreshing sign for him. They're locked into him for, I think it's 4 more years. And so they really need to get some investment back on that big contract they spent on him.
Okay. What about pitching staff? It seems like as though the relative youth of much of the staff, as well as perceived inexperience, hasn't really been borne out so far. But
their pitching staff. Sean Markham is a guy who's very pitching savvy. He doesn't throw 95 with a hammer curve or anything, but he's got a lot of pitching knowledge, and he's got good movement on his pitches. Some of their other staff members, as far as Ricky Romero, looks like he's turning the corner. He really looks like a guy who to watch in the next couple years. They made a move by sending Brandon Lee to Seattle to pick up Brandon Morrow. I like the move. I like that they've given him stability in a starting role and told him this is what you're going to be, because he was moved back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen in Seattle, and he's got top shelf stuff. Dana Evelin's kind of a reclamation project, so we'll see how that pans out, but so far so good. Brian Talbot, I think you'll notice, is a placeholder for some of their younger pitching coming along. And they're just waiting for a few of them to be ready, and I think they'll be up and Talbot will be back in the bullpen. But overall, their pitching, I don't have any problems with Toronto's pitching. I like it.
Okay. Thoughts on the acquisition of Fred Lewis? Good fit for the club's lineup?
Really good fit. They needed another outfielder, and he's got prototypical leadoff skills. He's good on base percentage, sees a lot of pitches. He has good speed. He's got a little bit of pop. So he's the kind of guy you want to top your lineup. I could see him, once Encarnacion gets healthy, in a platoon with Jose Bautista in the outfield, and with a righty-lefty. And I really like Fred Lewis, the acquisition. They didn't have to give up too much.
Okay. Into the future, I guess. What do you predict the team is going to look like under the vision of Anthopoulos, and what do you expect to see in the future?
Well, I expect the Jays to continue getting younger. You're going to see a lot of guys maybe you haven't heard of, but the guys they have in their system right now, a lot of young talent. And I think that's the way you have to compete in this division, for sure. You can't outspend the Yankees on those big payrolls on the field. You can do a better job behind the scenes. So that's I can see them being a young and talented team in the future.
All right, I'm Trever Busch, this is Barkley Busch, and that's our take on the Toronto Blue Jays for this season.